A very warm welcome to this very first episode of Group Editor's Health Focus. This episode is proudly brought to you by Pharmacy. So with the opening of school doors, we thought it only fitting that we focus this episode on our children and families' mental and physical well-being. So we kick off this episode with a very interesting conversation with Anida Marais, learner support teacher, who talks to us about how to make sure your child is equipped for the school year ahead and how to support their individual learning abilities. We then have the privilege of speaking with Reinet Saunders, who has 20 years experience in the pharmaceutical industry. Reinet tells us about neurodiversity and how to support your little ones in their mental and physical development. We then close off with some great advice on products that you can pick up from Pharmacy to support your family's mental development and physical well-being. We trust that you find these discussions as informative and motivating as we did. Anida, or Teacher Anida, otherwise known as, can you give us a little bit of background into your teaching journey and what has brought you to your passion and work with younger children?
Okay, I started by studying at University of Stellenbosch. I did my honours in psychology, and then I taught high school kids for 15 years.
Sure. And
then I got my own kids, and then my focus changed a little bit, and then I started part-time at a training facility with child development. And then I decided I'm going to actually turn to the younger kids. And when we moved to George a few years ago, the opportunity came along that I would be a learner support teacher at George Preparatory, and I never looked back.
So Anida, in this day and age that we live in, where children are exposed to TV and devices, how does a parent make sure that their children are taking up healthy learning choices?
Oh, that's always a difficult one. We're living in an age of technology, and you cannot take it away from your kids. So the parent must always know that they're in control of it, and they can manage that. And it's for the children's benefit that they manage it. So there's always stuff that you must try to take in consideration. If your child have their own device, try to control it with apps so that you can limit time with that. But also important, there is educational stuff that you also can put on their devices, so you can use it in a positive way as well. Screen time must not be a thing that you keep them busy with. They must keep them busy with free play, running around, doing better educational stuff. So you can reward them with screen time if they did other better options.
Yes.
And the better options must be available. Like there must be space where they can play. There must be play day which they can play. There must be puzzles that be built. And that takes a lot of the parent, because it's much easier just to put the kid in front of a device and then they happy and you happy and there's no tantrums or dramas. So it takes a lot from the parent to give alternatives and always try to get a balance between those things. Not too much, not too less, and they must know it's not good for them to have it too much.
Yes.
The World Health Organization has guidelines, and for children, babies nothing. Children between 3 and 4 and about an hour a day, and then from 5 until 18 years up to 2 hours a day. And that's not a lot of screen time. So it's very important that you must take control of that, because there's a lot of negative things. The structure in their brain changes when they have too much screen time, and that's the part of the brain that that they need for listening skills, learn to read, and those stuff is big things. Their eyes are affected. Their eyes get negatively affected if they too much on a device. The body, the problem with screen time, if you're too much on screen time, your body haven't got enough exercise, and that's what small children need. Free play to be, so there's a lot of things that you must take. So the most important things, parents must take control of that, yes. And children won't always understand that, but you must give a system that's working for you and your children.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So tell me, all the schools are back.
Yes.
Lots of kids returning to school, but also lots of new students.
Yes.
How does a parent prepare their children to make sure that they are learning ready for all of those new moms out there?
The most important thing is structure and routine at home. And that is going to bed early, have the best choices of a healthy diet, have structure at home for when is free time, when is screen time. Keep it calm in the morning before you go to school. If there's drama at home before you go to school, the child is anxious when it's coming to school, and that's very important. So the child must be calm and ready to go to school to be able to go and learn. There's a lot of new stuff for the child at school. So if he's already anxious as he's coming to school, it's difficult for him to absorb all the other things that's there that he must learn at school.
Of course.
Yes.
And then learning challenges in the school environment. Very often it's detected quite early, sometimes a little bit later on. How do educators kind of pick up if a child is having challenges learning, and what kind of advice can you give to parents to identify if their child has learning challenges?
Okay. When the child is still small, and usually when he's first going to go for formal teaching or to a formal school, that's the first time then the teachers usually pick up something. So that is why it's so very important for the parents to have a very good relationship with the teacher. Trust the teacher, and the teacher must trust the parents as well. So that's a relationship that's there to help the kid. So there is, every child develop on his own pace, but there's specific norms of development for specific peer groups. And if the teacher pick up that she's a little bit worried about a specific skill or a thing that anything that the child isn't able to do that's age appropriate, she will usually contact the parent. Luckily, at most schools here in George, there's very good supportive systems at school. So we learner support teachers who support children. It just needs some extra time with support of stuff. But we also can refer children to the department, and there's a lot of special therapists and people that can help the children, like occupational therapists, speech therapists, psychologists, welfare workers. So there's a lot of support, but we need the parents to be on board as well.
Of course.
Yes, and we can also refer children to private practices, and we do that as well a lot if the parents can afford that. And the earlier we can do that, the better for the child. And most of those children that we detected in grade are already on grade 1. Usually when they go into grade 4, there's no problem anymore. But if we don't attend to the problem early enough, then it's getting bigger and bigger. So the earlier, the better. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important to highlight that a lot of children have different talents.
Exactly. So we kind of focus on one specific thing, like academic achievement, and it's very important. I've heard last week on a course that I was that we must focus on the effort and not on the result.
I love that.
And that's very important for people, because the child must have confidence to try again, and that's the most important thing in life, to try again and to be willing to do your best,
Absolutely.
not the group's best.
Yes.
And that is the most important thing, and that is the responsibility of the parent to emphasize that in your child, and to keep his self-worth good enough that he keeps trying and giving his best. And I think that's the most important thing.
Very important.
Yes, yeah.
And tell me, so there's a lot of controversy around the use of medications, be it pharmaceuticals or like holistic alternatives. What is your feeling on the use of medications for learning assistance?
No straightforward answer for that one, because it's quite a difficult thing. Medication has definitely got its place, definitely. But in a foundation phase where the children is, we always try to eliminate other factors that can also cause learning barriers. For example, if a child have a lot of trauma, he can also present a behavior that looks like concentration problems. Or if the child don't get enough sleep, or there's not enough structure at home, or his diet isn't fine, or he haven't got listening skills, or there's a problem with his ears, or whatever. So in the foundation phase, we try to eliminate all other factors. And if we have done everything that we can do now, and if there's enough support at home, then we refer that kid to a doctor, because that's not our field to make any diagnosis. And then the doctor will take it further. If the doctor decide that maybe this child is will benefit from support with medication. But the other thing that's very important is that parents must know that is the beginning of a path that you must walk with the doctor and with the teacher. Because it's not a magical thing that's now all the problems is over and we just give the child the tablet and that's the end of the story. We must still see how the child response on the medication. Is it correct doses? Is it correct medicine? Is the medication really necessary? So there's a lot of factors that must be taken in account, but for some children it is absolutely changing their whole perception and feeling of being able to go to school if they're on the correct medication.
It's amazing that we do have those kinds of options.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it's our last resort. And some children really need it. So we're not going to do that as a first option.
Absolutely.
Yes, yeah. And if that's a challenge for a kid, why not give him the support that he needs? I always tell parents, if we're having these conversations and they're not sure whether that's the correct option, if you take your child to his eyes tested and the doctor the person telling that he needs glasses to see on the board, you'll definitely give him the glasses.
Absolutely.
But if you take him to the doctor and the doctor said the child needs support for medication to focus and to function in class, why can you tell you're not going to give it to them? So it's on that same level, and people don't think about it like that. Yes, but it's a complicated thing. It's not so, it's complicated. And I know for some parents it's quite a thing to get used to.
So there's this new age movement called gentle parenting, which obviously comes with a lot of pros.
Yes.
Where parents are a lot more focused on their children's emotional development and growth. But sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but sometimes it comes with a little bit of lack of structure.
Yes.
Can you talk to me about the importance of structure when it comes to children's learning?
The emotional side of a child is very important. So I'm very pro of that kind of parenting that try to help your child to get in touch with their own feelings and how to react on specific feelings. But the child's brain is still busy developing. So you must give the structure and you must decide when is what the best for that child. A child haven't got that capacity at that small age. And small children rather sit in front of the TV than to go to bed. But they need to have enough sleep to develop and to get the best of the next day. So there's also a fine balance of giving your child more emotional support, but they also need the structure, and you still stay the parent. Your brain is already developed. You have experience. That's why you're the parent. Their brain isn't developed. They haven't got experience. So they must know that the parent have got the capacity to tell them what to do when, in moderation. And those children usually suffer a lot to function in a structured environment like a school. And the house is the first environment where we must learn to function between boundaries, and a child needs boundary. That's what making them feel very safe. If they can do whatever they want to do, they don't feel safe. So the house is the first place where they must feel safe, and there's specific boundaries, what they know, what is right and what's wrong. Then the next phase is going to your school, and there's different boundaries that also must be know what is right and what is wrong. And then the next one is life. So if you don't learn to stay between boundaries and what's good for you and what's not good for you, you're going to have quite a challenge when you're an adult.
Teacher Anida, it's been an absolute pleasure having you. I've learned so much today, and I'm sure a lot of people have found this discussion incredibly valuable to them and their families too.
Oh, it was a privilege, and it's a privilege to work with little children and now see how they flourish when they're getting older.
Amazing.
Yes, thank you.
Reinet, so you have a very impressive CV, 20 years pharmaceutical experience and a Master's of Science in Organic Chemistry. Can you tell us a little bit more about your career journey and your passion around health and wellness?
Yes, surely. I think just after I finished my organic chemistry degree, I started teaching as a lecturer at the Free State Technikon, which was nice, interacting with the students. And then I worked for a few years at a small pharmaceutical company as a scientist there. And after that, I became involved with the rep work for Flordis SFI, and then continued from there into training manager and key opinion leader, etc. But where I learned the most was actually from my 3 daughters, and in the journey of raising them and the various joys and challenges that we had to face, especially in terms of various aspects then of learning. But it's been an amazing journey, and it's still an ongoing journey.
Yes, of course. So children are now all back at school, and for many parents, top of mind is how can they optimize their learning experience. What would you say are the key consideration factors in their learning and education process?
You know, I would start actually by saying, listen to your child. Find out what energizes them, what stimulates them, because everyone is not designed to be a scientific or a maths genius, and to just try and focus on weaknesses to build that up is not going to help much. Try and find their strengths and help them to let their strengths enable them to become the full human being that they were designed to be. For example, to just tell an elephant he needs to work on his agility skills is not the best way, or to try and make a giraffe be a better leopard crawler is not going to be very encouraging.
I love that, yes. And so, health and wellness. We all know that diet and exercise contribute to one's physical health and well-being, but it also can contribute to one's mental development and concentration and all of those kinds of things. Do you have any tips for parents on how they can aid their children in developing a healthy lifestyle that can contribute to the benefit of their education?
Absolutely. I have witnessed myself, and I've learned a lot over the years about the absolute essentialness of feeding your brain what it needs to function well. And basically, superfood for brains is fat. So fats is what our brain actually wants to function on, and more specifically, the essential fatty acids that comes from your small oily fish. There's a specific type, the EPA, that is actually very necessary for the brain to function well and to transfer messages very well. And then of course proteins is very important for the brain, and that 1 egg a day or at least 1 egg a day in the morning before school is doing wonders for the brain. And then on the flip side of it, that which the children often chooses, the sugary cereals, are causing havoc in the brain. And I know it's an uphill battle because marketing forces it down our kids' throats, and the tuck shops at school doesn't always have the best choices. And I can also testify to the fact that I try to pack a good lunchbox to my kids, and I heard afterwards that they switched their biltong and their fruit for knickknacks and sweeties. So it's important for the kids to start realizing that some foods are superfoods and our brain just can't concentrate when the sugar levels are too high. You get a sugar spike and then it falls through the floor, and then especially they start being very hyperactive, can't sit still, can't concentrate.
Sure, I feel like a lot more people need to know that. And tell me, are there any pharmaceutical products on the market at the moment that can assist parents in helping their children with concentration and memory and all of those kinds of things?
Charlie, there is so much on the market that I think that is actually the overwhelming factor. Because even if you only consider the natural market without prescription, if you go to the shelf, you are just bombarded by so many things and you don't know what to choose, because everyone has got a very nice marketing slogan and a nice package. So what you need to look at is different from just what appeals to your senses. So you want results, and you want studies, and you want quality, and you want to know it's going to be the same every time. For me, it's a privilege to say I've been working for SOHO Flordis for the last 15 years, and the company absolutely adheres to the strictest rules of having good quality products that have to have clinical studies. They have to be consistently the same, and we also have safety data every second year, which is one of the reasons why the specialists in the area are also prescribing it or recommending it. So we've got Keen Mind, which has got extensive clinical studies on it, to help with concentration, focus, memory, and very importantly also to calm the brain. So especially this time of the year when the kids are
So much
very
anxiety.
anxious about the new teacher and the new classmates and everything, it really helps calms the brain. And then the other very excellent product that we've got is the Equizen, which was previously known as IQ. And Equizen has got also extensive studies in terms of ADHD improvement, with dyslexia or the inability to read and spell properly. So there's a very big improvement when children are treated with Equizen in terms of the ability to catch up being behind reading and spelling. Also other milestones, the fine motor skills, gross motor skills, even speech development in the younger kids. So there's a whole host of clinical studies in a wide area of learning and challenges that children normally struggles with.
That's amazing. So, taking from my own experience now, I've got a son in high school and a daughter in crèche. And going back to school now, one of my biggest anxieties was illness, which is inevitable. I know it's going to happen. But do you have any advice for parents like me who just want to make sure that not only our children are getting the best education, but their immune systems are strong, and although they will encounter illness, they will get through it well? Do you have any products that you can recommend or any advice for parents like me?
I think, again, there's a whole host of products on the shelf that targets the children's immune system market, and recently we are very excited to say that we gained the marketing rights for Sambicol, which is a very well tested product that actually helps prevent children and adults from getting flu viruses, colds and flu viruses, or if you are already sick, if you start using it immediately, it actually targets those viruses, prevent it from entering your lungs and spreading. So again, a very effective product. So for those parents that are indefinitely struggling with kids picking up all sorts of flu and colds, and then the whole family is sick, you can definitely take a look at the Sambicol product range, which is from 1 year old. It's a syrup, and then up to the adult range. It's an elderberry extract, and it's marketed in many countries across the world also.
Amazing. And then tell me, for families who can't necessarily afford some of these pharmaceutical products, is there anything that they can do to contribute towards their children's well-being, health, wellness, and learning abilities?
Absolutely, Shirley. I think the basic things to start with is, as I've mentioned before, listen to your child. And especially if it's an anxious child, validate their emotions. So don't try to think they will feel better when you try to minimize their fears or just ignore it or talk about something else. It actually helps for them to be heard and to hear that it is okay sometimes to feel afraid or anxious or overwhelmed. Many people feel like that, but that they are not alone. That they know that they can talk to you, and then in enabling children that struggles more with emotional sensitivities or anxieties, one can either encourage them to do drawings or some sort of creative thing that becomes an outlet of their emotions, or draw a picture of how they feel, or identify with a picture of their emotions, because that is a very healthy way of handling it. Then your more busy, energetic child, one can let them play ball, run, jump trampoline. That's a very good idea for any child actually, because it releases the natural endorphins in your body that is important to calm you down and for a good mood. So that is something very nice, and I heard from one of the leading pediatricians in George. It was Dr. Andre Swart, that actually said that if a child can do a high intensity exercise in the morning before school for about 15 or 20 minutes, it works a little bit like Ritalin, that actually a stimulant that actually calms them down for 3 to 4 hours. And then if in break time they can again do some healthy running, once again you're calming them down. So good exercise, intensive exercise, and if a kid doesn't like exercise that much, change it into a game, something that the kid likes. And then healthy boundaries or healthy structure, not too strict, but enough to bring security to a child helps. And don't forget that you need to be good to yourself also. So those parents that feel they can't give enough to their children, I think it's important for that parents also to realize they need to look after themselves, be good and be kind and compassionate to yourself also, because you cannot give what you yourself are not having or experiencing. And then also the example of working hard, persevering, not losing hope is something very precious that can't be bought with money. So sometimes we find that the kids that parents give them everything actually struggles more than those that has got examples of parents that are working hard and just giving their everything, and that example is worth more than money.
Tell me, neurodiversity, this is quite a big topic of late. Can you give us some insight into what is neurodiversity, and just some factors that we need to be more aware of?
Yes, Shirley, I think I'm actually very excited about the fact that there is a whole movement worldwide towards rather defining people not by a pathology or a disorder when their brain and their nerve system are working differently, but being recognized as just having a different design. So neurodiversity is a brain and a nerve system that just doesn't function like the typical or the neurotypical person. And that other previously conditions that were previously diagnosed as disorders, such as your ADHD, your autism, dyslexia, dyscalculia, which is people that actually struggles a lot with maths, and a few other things are all under the umbrella term of neurodiversity. Now, to be honest, yes, it is a challenging world to live in when your brain doesn't function like the typical person, not only at school or a classic school system, but even after school in work it can be challenging. But on the flip side of it is that often these people has got a very unique gifting. For example, if I remember correctly, Tom Cruise is very, very badly dyslexic. So he can't really read. So he learned all of his scripting for all of his movies by listening to it. And I heard that some big entrepreneurial companies over the world in IT, etc., are actually now sourcing people who are more neurodiverse because they have the ability to think differently, to think out of the box. So from my side, I want to say to parents who find that their kids are not functioning like the neurotypical person, that don't just try to fix your child. Don't try to just hyper-focus on what they are not doing exactly as the typical person, but celebrate their differences also, and realize that in their differences there can be a gifting which makes them the next entrepreneur or enable them to do something that someone else cannot offer to this world.
Wow, we really live in exciting times, that there is so much research just kind of pushing us forward as a civilization in this way. So, Reinet, thank you so much for your time. Before we go, can we maybe just talk about some key products once more that you would highly recommend to our readers for the mental and physical health and well-being of their children?
Sure. I think while we just discussed the neurodiversity topic, that Equizen is absolutely exceptional in all neurodiverse people. There has been clinical published studies in good journals that showed improvement for people being diagnosed with autism, ADHD, numerous studies where it helps increase the concentration of the child, where it actually also improved the anxiety. So there's improvement in children, especially the very young ones, where they have got really a lot of sensitivities around temper tantrums or meltdowns, etc., where it improved. And then, of course, as I've mentioned before, children that struggles to read and spell improves 9 months in 3 months' time when they take Equizen, which is really amazing. Speech development improves, and being able to write well. Sometimes you find the kids that really struggles, their handwriting is so bad, they just get all of these bad reports from the teacher all the time, and they feel like a failure. So that has to do with the ability of the brain and the eyes to send the message successfully to the hand. And even in that, there has been huge improvements showed in clinical studies with the Equizen. And then the Pharmaceutical, as we've mentioned before, assist with preventing all of those constant colds and flus, or even if you do get sick and you start drinking it within 2 days, 3 days later most of your symptoms are resolved. So it's a really quick acting, effective product for a variety of colds and flus.
Amazing. Thank you, Reinet. Thank you so much for your time today. I'm sure we've got a lot of readers that are going to head down to Equizen Pharmacy to stock up on some of these wonderful products.
Thank you very much, Shirley.
So, as a parent, sending my children back to school, one of the things that I'm quite anxious about is their immune system and the possibility of them contracting viruses. But on top of that, I also want to make sure that they are being well equipped, for their education process. What products would you recommend that can contribute towards our children's both physical and mental well-being?
So nothing substitutes a good diet. A lot of children doesn't have a good appetite, so then I would supplement with something like Biostraff. It contains a lot of nutrients